We know very much that really a UN decision will not end occupation in itself, but we also know that it's a step in the very right direction. I mean, once we as a state recognized by the world, having a seat in the United Nations, in the system of the globe, it enables us really to pursue our rights, to protect our rights, to establish some sort of a legal and political parity whereby we can really advance the cause of peace. I mean, our rights are enshrined in international law. Our rights have an international consensus, and this is exactly what we are trying to do. While we have been engaged in a peace process for the last 20 years, trying to exercise and implement these rights, and we have unfortunately failed miserably. And I think the failure is primarily because the successive Israeli governments have not really had the enough sufficient political will to go with it and implement the two-state solution. Now we give that a help and an aid, and the help is the international community.
You say you seek the backing of the world, but you don't have the backing of President Barack Obama, at least in terms of what he has said at the UN. Surely you must be disappointed by a speech which basically says you have to go back to the negotiating table and the UN vote is not the way to achieve statehood. Are you disappointed?
I am personally disappointed at some of his remarks, but we don't disagree with President Obama's vision. His vision is resolving the conflict based on the two-state solution. On the 1967, he's been very clear about it. His vision is very clear. From day one, he said that settlements cannot go on, grabbing the land and stealing the land cannot go on while we are negotiating. We agree with his vision. Well, where we differ is on the approach. I mean, he wants us to go back to the last 20 years of futile rounds of talks that really serve no purpose but to perpetuate and to sustain the status quo.
Do you believe that the United States is still the linchpin in achieving peace between Israelis and Palestinians?
Absolutely. I am absolutely convinced that the US's strategic interest is exactly what they have been saying for the last so many years, the successive US administrations. And let me be blunt and frank here. The problem is that America could not really succeed so far to remove Israel/Palestine from it being a very domestic issue subjected to calculations of elections to it being a foreign policy. So far, Israel remains to be at the heart of the American domestic policy, and we cannot afford waiting another 20 years, frankly. I don't want my kids to have the faith I have received and to live the life I have lived.
You are negotiating, the Palestinians are negotiating on behalf of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, if you like, Fatah. What about Hamas? They're not on board here, are they? They don't agree with this vote.
Well, there is the Palestinian Liberation Organization, and the PLO is the sole legitimate representative of the Palestinians. Hamas. Hamas approves of that. Hamas seeks to be part of the PLO, and I would think that this is a good idea. We need to agree on certain issues, and this is what we are doing right now. We have signed a reconciliation agreement only 3 months ago in May. It's not moving as fast as possible, but
they don't agree with this vote, do they? They don't agree with this vote, do they?
No, I haven't heard Hamas publicly saying that they disagree on the premise of the vote. They want it to be included, and I think they should be included if they abide by certain political rules, and they are. I mean, Hamas also calls for the two-state solution now. Hamas wants to see a Palestinian state in the West Bank and Gaza, and I don't think Hamas, from a principled point of view, would not want to see that state represented in the United Nations.